So I've been meaning to install a inverter system into my RV for like a long time. I'm thinking about it. Eventually we'll get some solar up on the roof, and so it can just be totally self-contained. So I finally got everything I needed to start that project. I already built my mounting board with brackets underneath. You can't see that. So I have a 2000 watt pure sine wave inverter. Those are a little bit nicer if you have appliances that are a little bit more sensitive, like TVs. You might hear a hum. If you have a modified sine, they're just a little bit truer power, like you'd see from power grid. So I highly recommend pure sine versus modified sine. The modified sines are a little bit cheaper, but if you don't want any hum on your TV or some of your other appliances, for like a microwave and whatnot, probably not a big deal. But anyway, I went with the pure sine. So I'm going to lay this out and get started. So it's a real simple design. I wanted the ability to turn off the power coming from the battery, so I put in line just an on-off switch. I don't know, I just think it's a good idea to be able to turn off the power to everything that's going to the inverter and the trailer. I also added a 50 amp breaker just for some wire protection. The remote control switch I'll have to install. I think I've got a really nice clean place to install it in the trailer that we'll get to a little bit later. I've pre-drilled some holes because I made this board a little bit bigger than I think it needed to be, just because I'm planning to install a solar array, probably a 300 watt Renogy solar array, and I wanted to leave room for the BMS and some other things that we're going to have to add for the solar. And then I pre-drilled some holes just with the idea that I might need to run some of those solar wires through it, but I don't know yet. That we'll figure that out later. I did end up not using any of the wire. They sent it with 4 gauge wire in the kit. I just felt like that wasn't sufficient for the length. I've got it installed pretty close to the battery. You want it as close to the battery as you can get, but I do have probably a couple foot run into the battery, and I just felt like 4 gauge wire wasn't going to be sufficient. So I'm sure you saw already that I was building cables as I went along, and hopefully that will pay off. And I think that's it. Okay, so I got my prelim install done. I'll walk you through that in a minute, but before I actually finish buttoning everything up, I just wanted to run a quick test. So I wanted to test the remote switch, test the inverter, and the overall circuitry. Yeah, so here we go. That looks like it comes on okay. So it's working pretty good, except it just, you can tell it doesn't have enough power. I haven't worked with this inverter before, but I kind of like that it has a power level. Let's see what it does when we overpower it. I had that on warm. Alright, my batteries definitely don't have enough juice to run a 1500 watt hair dryer, but we'll replace those, and I think it'll work good. So to start that, I just grabbed a piece of cardboard and basically made a template for where to cut inside the trailer and get that mounted. They didn't send me any templates or any cutting templates, so I thought it'd just be easier if I just made one out of a piece of cardboard. We'll go ahead and drill one of the corners, tape it up, and then pull up my saw and clean out those edges so that we can get the switch mounted, and then we'll go ahead and fish the remote wire through over to where the inverter is. I changed my mind on where to mount this remote switch. My wife reminded me that she is not as tall as I am, and it would be hard for her to hit that switch up by that vent. So there is a mounting plate for the trailer, and I'm just going to mount this, as well as I think I'll be able to fit the solar panel display reading on that same panel. So I'm going to switch tacks and mount that on this panel, and then it'll be a lot easier to fish that wire too because it's a shorter run. Our remote switch all fished and wired up through the trailer. This is a space that we're going to be putting the inverter in. It's actually going to run vertical right here. So the next step is I'm going to run the battery wires through there, through some ABS conduit, and then down out to the batteries. Alright, I don't know how well you can see that. I made my exit hole here and decided to go right there. That'll be in line with my battery. In a minute I'll fasten that down and caulk that in and foam it on the other side. And now my out for my battery cables come right there, and now I'll go ahead and mount the board. So I got the inverter system installed in the RV. I showed you that, but wires now run through and down through the trailer. And then the mounting board, I wanted to kick it up sideways so I could still have my space available for storage and whatnot. Originally I was going to run it directly into my panel. For safety, I've decided not to do that, and I'm just going to run it into my shore power, and that way there's no possibility of running accidental shore power and the inverter at the same time. So that'll take care of that. I'm going to make a shorter shore power cable, and it's just nice and concise for the inverter system. Tested the remote, that works good. I got my ground frame just mounted here, and then I need to inject. I bought foam insulation to seal this off after I get my cabling installed in the sheath, and then we're going to slide under the trailer here. Got the insulation foam all sprayed in my hole, so that's all sealed off. Then ran 3/4 inch insulation, just zip tied that together with two just rubber clamps. Don't need super tight, there to there, and then my battery cables will run right up and through here. Turn that on, turns green to let us know it's there. And on my RV I have a battery disconnect switch, which is really nice. Otherwise, if you're running the inverter, it's just going to be in a continuous loop, charging the battery but discharging the battery. So I have a manual disconnect, so it's not going to feed that loop, but still run all my AC units just like it would with the shore power. So let's give it a try. Here, I've got a 2000 watt inverter. It should run an 1100 watt microwave. Success. All right, I think that's about it. Next video, I'm going to install the 300 watt solar system from Renogy. Hope you got something out of this video.